Today, we talk about
elevate, elevate. Only obligation is to tell it straight.
no blood, so worth it. Alright, so it's getting dark. I'm going to try a little bit more unconventional style here. Dumb down the production, and let's just rip these open and call it a day, shall we? Okay, first up, so the tag, just to end all the curiosity here, I had briefly hinted at the fact that I was fairly impressed with Adidas on the Pod 3.1 launch execution. Therefore, here these are. But not to get too in-depth, because everyone's been talking about these to depth, but here they is. Very nice in hand. One of the things I just want to get off my chest now, I want to specially shout out Tony D2 Wild. His on-feats with these made me feel a type of way, and that type of way has a lot to do, thanks to Tony D's demonstration, with this little piece and this little piece, coupled with how you pants-size this, for lack of a better term. And I'll leave it at that. Blue insole, very nice. I love that continuation into this, and I just noticed this little bit of blue there. I will give certain sneakers a lot more credit these days, because the more sneakers you buy, the more you start to notice the little things. Like when I first started collecting sneakers, this would not have impressed me. Now, if there were any more of this here, in terms of the blue, it actually could have bothered me. It's just fascinating that my opinion could change so much on something just based on where my mind's at with it. But anyway, let's keep it moving. Priorities. Guys, with that pathetic drum roll, let me just tell you, these are the equipment running guidance, and based on current events, if this makes me a clout chaser, feel free to call me out. I'm willing to take the criticism. But with that said, for those that still don't know what we're talking about, let me hit you with the bop. And if that wasn't enough, let me hit you with the bop. So, I had talked myself out of getting this 2 years ago, and granted, I didn't know as much about Pusha T back then than I do compared to what I know about him now, but this was obviously his first collaboration with Adidas. Some folks have talked about this at length, but just so you can appreciate the theme here. And I do have an EQT OG support, but this is a slightly different build and obviously a very different material makeup. Bop bop. So yeah, I would be lying. Oh, don't forget the Dubre. With that one saying push, the other one saying king. Oh, don't forget the gum bottom. Oh, again with the Pyrex print in there. Very cool. And then 3 stripes. No, that's more than that. Never mind. Actually, I wonder what this is about. Is this more functional, or is this part of the messaging of the shoe? Y'all let me know. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to focus on this too much, but yeah, again, as a Kanye, well, I'm a Kanye stan-ish too, but I'd say I'm just as big a fan, if not bigger fan, of Drake. But even I can be adult enough to admit that Pusha impressed me, and I think he impressed a lot of people. No shade on Drake, regardless. But with that said, this is my tribute as a. This is basically my way of saying, Push, props. I see you, Terrence. All right, next up. Already a clue for you. Bop bop. Those of you that have been following me for a while had to know this was coming. And here it is. Alright, so 23 paper. Always nice to see little details. Ooh. Wow. So I was a little worried about these being limited based on announcements Jordan Brand had made earlier in the year. But wow, people weren't kidding you. This is very plush, I'll give them that. You know, I'm just so tired of people hating on Jordan retros. Maybe I'm just not as spoiled in the context of me never even having these shoes and learning about them well after the fact. So I come from it with a different bias and a different starting point, and therefore a different appreciation, not better, but just different, of how I view this. So while I feel very blessed to be in sneakers in what I believe to be the best time, because the growth of the culture as an organized, relatable hobby, anything above that is gravy. So with that coinciding at a time where enough retros have come out, where a lot of old heads have been able to put new sneakerheads in a position to unfortunately be kind of spoiled with remastered retros, as much as you think they've been remastered or not. It's nice to hear that certain details have gone back to OG form compared to years past, so that therefore I don't have to feel the need to ever get this on the next retro, if they do a good enough job with these, which I imagine they're doing. Can't picture them being any better, but we'll see. So this metallic red carbon fiber, if it is that, is an incredible look in hand. I don't know how well it's showing to y'all. Of course, the Ferrari inspiration. Again, I'll have to do a dedicated video on this amongst all the other Jordan lines, but or Jordan models of the original 14, but still have to be a little pissed at Michael Jordan for busting these out right after the 13s within the same season, because it cost me a little extra, but what you gonna do? Next up, pump it up, bop. So this is a little curveball for y'all. This is the Pump Omni Light. Boom, boom. And I had my eye on these for a while, but finally decided to pull the trigger. Boom, the D Browns, baby. One of the most infamous dunks of all time. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Yeah, I mean, not really too much more to add, especially not now, but you know, I have the original OG Reebok pumps, but nice to have now not only the white OG, but now the black OG of a slightly different model to continue with my hunt for various diverse silhouettes. So very happy to be able to get this in hand. Adds a little bit of versatility to my Reebok options. Cool. Next, a little bittersweet with this. I'll start with the bitter just to get out of the way. I had posted on Instagram my frustrations with not being able to purchase this on release day. I knew it would not be a general release, but I did know that the hype wouldn't be as real for these as, say, a brand new Yeezy. But unfortunately, still have to pay resale. Luckily, not too much more than retail, but regardless, I'm just, you know, getting tired of having to pay resale. Anyway, with that said, I do have to give a shout out because I do have a soft spot for special packaging, let alone the fact that this packaging is beyond OD, and I'll tell you why. Who wasn't a Sonic fan growing up? I remember this was one of the very first video games I was exposed to in the Sega Genesis line, expanding into Sonic 3D Blast right before the N64 came out, and then whew, that revolution of gaming from 2D to 3D. Ooh. Wow. 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 With that said, let's, okay. Credit again for the little details. Love the packaging. Oh, here they are, baby. The Sonic RS0. So obviously Puma's been pushing this new line of reviving their running system technology line. The closest correlation I can think of it is when Adidas took 3 of their previous high-tech silhouettes and combined them into a new idea of the NMD, which really took off. And I don't think this is going to have that same kind of impact for Puma, but regardless, this specific collaboration was an absolute home run on their part. Everything from the details of how they constructed the shoe to the look, it looks like a pleasing shoe. All the little details like Sonic's red shoes, the blue skin, and furriness of the suede correlating with his spikes, I guess. You know, the callbacks to the original levels of the game. The rings, bruh. I mean, they absolutely crush this. I knew the minute I saw the first images of this, I was going to cop, and I was just waiting for the day to pull the trigger. So I'm glad it's finally here. You can sort of make out the previous Puma wing, so to speak, but it's very subtle in this pair, on top of the fact that it's getting dark, so you can't really notice it all that much. But I actually kind of enjoy that, because it lets you know that, hey, we haven't forgot our roots, but this is brand new and we're trying to highlight that. So I appreciate that, because it would kind of look out of place in the context of Sonic, unless of course he had stripes, which he didn't. So idiot. So word. Also, nice little touch with the rings. Ba-da-ba. Shout out to Adidas and Mero, I guess. And with that said, thanks for joining. We'll see you on the next one. We out.
I put my hand on the stave, and I can say I'm free. Ah, day do, day do, day do, day do, day do.